Hello, everybody, and welcome into another season preview show here at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and we are up to the Chicago Blackhawks here as we keep going through the teams and previewing the season. I've got three really big writers here at the Hockey Writers that cover the Blackhawks. Brooke LoFurno, Gail Kauchak, and Hunter Crowther all have been with the site for a pretty decent amount of time. I know Brooke and Gail, you've been around for a while. Hunter, I think you're 2 years?
It's year two.
Year two.
Woo!
So yeah, we're let's just jump right into the Blackhawks. I mean, they're of course, missed the playoffs. Got another high pick. Drafted Artem Levshunov and after Bedard the previous season. And I mean, it's an exciting time to actually be a Blackhawks fan right now. There's a lot of new faces coming into the team, a lot of established veterans that are still really productive players in the league. And then, of course, you've got the young guns playing as well. So, I mean, it's actually a really exciting group of players. So, let's just jump right into the forward group, which saw a lot of additions. And I want to start with Tyler Bertuzzi because here's a guy that played in Toronto last season, had a relatively good season. A little surprising that he goes and joins the Blackhawks, which, I mean, of course, they're still a rebuilding team. But I'll start with you, Hunter, on Bertuzzi, because I know you wrote a piece on him earlier on when he was signed. What do you think about his addition to the team? What is he going to bring to this group?
I think that if you've watched him in the last few seasons, there's been pockets where he's a highly productive forward, and you see someone that can um, add a little bit of snarl to their game. I think sometimes we think of him as like a big power forward, but what he really is it's a bit of a rat, but who has great hands and can navigate through the front of the net and bang in loose pucks, and also is more than capable in his own end. So adding him on a long-term deal, I think for this team particularly, where they're taking those steps out of a rebuilding group and becoming a team that, even if they're not a playoff team now, they're going to compete as one. I think it's a fantastic addition for them, and he's someone that can be versatile in the lineup. You can have him little first line spot duty with Bedard. You can move him down the lineup because he has a little speed, and also some spot duty on power play. I think overall it was one of the better signings they made in the offseason.
I mean, he had a really good season after a few, actually not very good seasons before that, where he was hurt, and of course the COVID year was all a mess for everyone. So I mean, he kind of really bounced back in Toronto and was a good player. Then actually, he bounced back in Boston first, and then
Yes.
came to Toronto. So I mean, maybe it was before that, but he's now back to being a really productive player. So. And he's probably going to play with Connor Bedard to start the season. That's good. That's a really good start for him. Brooke, I want to talk about Teuvo Teravainen next. He's returning to the Blackhawks after starting his career here. I went to Carolina, of course, really productive for the Hurricanes. He's a pretty perennial 20 goal scorer. You're pretty much going to be set that he's going to score 20 goals. And he probably will again with Bedard playing with him most likely. What do you think about Teravainen rejoining the Blackhawks? Now he's a veteran, not a young guy anymore.
I know that a lot of fans are like, I'm kind of over like the returning players because that is a thing with the Blackhawks. But Tavo does seem like a smart signing for them, especially because I think he said it perfectly. Like he learned a lot in Carolina. He was on a winning team. It's a good organization, a lot of good players. And like I said, he learned a lot. Like obviously he learned a lot being on a Stanley Cup team with the Blackhawks, but obviously he grew up technically in Carolina. So I do think they'll be getting, even though he might be maybe past his prime now, maybe a little bit, but they're still going to be getting a really effective player that has a lot to give them. So I do think it was a really smart signing, and I'm excited to see, like he talked about, like kind of bringing the lessons he learned over in Carolina to the Blackhawks. So I think that should be really fun for this group for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do because he's still a productive player. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he scored 20 goals last season. He was always part of Carolina's top six.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually surprised he left Carolina because he seemed like a fixture there. But coming back to Chicago, I seems excited that he's coming back. So I'm excited to see what he can do for the Blackhawks too. All right, Gail, let's talk about Ilya Mikheyev. I know him very well from Vancouver here, but he's has had a tough couple seasons with injuries. Not really fitting with the Canucks. I mean, he had some stretches where he was okay, but he comes to Chicago. He's still a pretty young player. He seems to have recovered from his injury now. What do you think of Mikheyev coming over to the Blackhawks?
Yeah, you had said he had that tough season and didn't do so well last year because more than likely they say that sometimes it takes almost a season to catch up from knee surgery. So the thing that I like about him is that at the beginning he's fast, right? And this is one of the things that the Blackhawks are looking for. They're trying to target people that are fast and can skate well, and that is definitely Mikheyev. So I think he could surprise, right? This could be the season where he kind of puts it all together, and who knows where he'll end up in the lineup. But he seems to me like another one that could kind of move up and down in the lineup, depending upon who he builds some chemistry with.
And I'll keep with you just to finish off the forward group, but Craig Smith being added as well. Fourth line guy. He's been around. He's a veteran. Really good penalty killer. What do you think about him being added to the bottom six here?
I like the idea that he's from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Right?
Go Badgers.
Born and raised. I'm sure he's really happy about, being so close to home. I did a piece on him. He seems like a really interesting guy. Yeah, he's been around for a long time, but there's people like that, like Nick Foligno was last year too. You're like, oh, he was just a throw-in, and then he's basically the captain of the Blackhawks at this point. So you never know what these veteran guys are going to contribute. Lots of experience. So I think it could be a good thing. It's just we have to wait and see, kind of.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns with some of the new guys coming in and see how they kind of mesh with the different players, right? Brooke, just as the forward group in general, what do you think about them going into this season? I mean, like I say, lots of additions. Of course, you've got the incumbents. You got Bedard in his sophomore season now. He's established in the league. He knows what it's all about now. What do you think about the forward group in general, of how they're going to kind of mesh together this season?
It looks good on paper. Let's say that. Like, it looks improved on paper. And that really was the goal, I think, going into next season, right? That it should look better than last season. So, I mean, when you have Bertuzzi and Teravainen and Mikheyev, like, you add a lot of scoring points. So that is definitely an upgrade. So I am excited about this group. I hope they mesh together. That's another thing. It can look good on paper, and you never know how they're actually going to mesh together. But I have high hopes. Obviously, when you have a group of veterans that kind of know what they're doing, I think they have potential to be, like I said, I'm not going to even say they'll be a playoff, because I don't really think they will be, but I hope that they are improved. Let's just put it that way. And I have high hopes for that. They should be improved.
For sure. And Hunter, what about you for the forward group? What do you think about it going into this season?
I think that I like the additions they made with Bertuzzi and Teravainen, and I think we can't discount having Taylor Hall potentially for a healthy season. He's had what would almost be a calendar year of just rehabbing and trying to get better. And I think also too, because he's in the last year of his contract, he's going to have a show me attitude. And I think sometimes that's healthy in this lineup of guys who either they're pending UFAs or they're at a stage in their career where they can either earn one more decent contract before they retire, or if they don't do it this year, they might never do it. So I think you've got motivated players who could surprisingly be productive. Just like Brooke, I don't know if they're a playoff group. I'd like to see them still play competitive hockey in March and April, but I think if anything, it's a motivated group, and they might be better than we anticipate.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, like Brooke said, it's interesting to see how they all mesh together. So many new faces, but it does look really good on paper. I'm actually, if you look at it and you plug that into NHL 25, they're probably a pretty good team. So I don't know. Gail, what about you? What do you think about the forwards? Anything to add here?
Well, we already talked about the new additions. Hunter brought up Taylor Hall, which was going to kind of be my definitely don't forget about him. Another person that was injured lots of last year was Andreas Athanasiou. He never seems to live up to his expectations, but he's got speed. He's played center. I think he could maybe be, well, we'll get to that later. I don't count him out. Jason Dickinson's still around. I mean, like you said, a lot of players, and if they can like actually put it together, they could surprise some people.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the Central Division later, but it is, like I said, it's actually a pretty good group when you're looking at on paper is different, of course, than being on the ice. But yeah, it's going to be fun to see how they all kind of come together and play, right? So, all right, moving to the defense, which saw a couple changes, a couple additions. Alec Martinez, TJ Brodie, two veterans that have been around the block many times. They've played a lot of games. Martinez is getting up there in age. Brodie is same thing. They join a team that they're just going to be bringing that mentorship and that stability, I think, to this defense group. So, Hunter, what do you think about the defense? The additions, the guys that are still here that have come out from last season. Korchinski, of course, coming into his second season in the NHL too. What do you think about the defense?
I'll touch briefly on Korchinski. I loved that he stayed the full year last year and they were allowing him to make mistakes, because I think of all the positions in the NHL, like being a top line center is difficult, but being a top four blue liner in the NHL going against the best players in the world every night, it's pretty difficult. But I'm glad that they let him kind of navigate his way through that. But I won't, if he ends up playing a little bit of time in the minors this year, I don't think that's the worst thing either. But for the additions with Brodie and Martinez, I think, like, if you look at Martinez, he's getting up there in age and he's probably got, if just 1 year, a couple of years left on his career. But those guys, the reason they're still in the league is because they know how to play the game on any given night and they know how to be a professional, whether it's just getting it high and off the glass and out of the zone, or clearing a guy out front, or not making the extra play, because sometimes the extra play is what burns you. And I think just having a guy like that, who, the same way that Nick Foligno came in last year and helped these guys learn how to be everyday professionals, I don't know if they had that on the blue line last year, and so that they have that with Brodie, who, yeah, he did struggle a lot in Toronto last year, but I think he's in a different situation now where the expectations are much lower. You might be getting the best out of these guys, and it might end up being that same thing, like I said, with Foligno, where you're teaching younger guys pros every day, and it ends up making everyone better, because rising tides lift all ships.
It's true. I mean, I really like the veteran addition, especially on defense, because they've been around. They know what it takes to win games, to get. I mean, maybe not far in the playoff. Martinez, of course, has a cup, but I mean, they know what it looks like to win, and that's a good thing for these young guys. Brooke, what do you think about this defense? I mean, like I say, there's actually a mix of young and veterans in here. And maybe the mid range. I mean, because even Connor Murphy's getting more in the mid. He's not really young, but he's not old. What do you think about the defense?
I'm a little concerned about the defense. Like, I don't know why. Like, I trust our veterans. Like, I do trust, like, Seth Jones and Connor Murphy, even though I know Connor Murphy's had his struggles, but you guys understand what I'm trying to get at. But I do think, like, Alex Vlasic and stuff will continue to be really good and kind of build off the strong year he had. But overall, I'm a little concerned. I think the defense, might be, I don't know, a little bit better, but just like fair. But if that's enough to just keep them stable, even with Alec Martinez and TJ Brodie, then I'm okay with that. So, but it will be interesting to see how this works out, especially with Kevin Korchinski and not knowing if he's going to make the team or not. But overall, yeah, I don't know. I think the defense will be maybe a little bit better, but I'm still concerned. But like I said, if they're just fair, then I'm good with that. If we don't need perfection here, just need some, just to be stable. So we'll see what happens here, but maybe they could surprise. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the veterans, they've been around. They know what good defense is. It's just meshing together with guys that are here already and getting a good system together. But there's a lot of different, again, question marks on the defense too. Gail, you have anything to add about the defense? Any thoughts about it going into this season?
I think that they've got their top pairing down in Seth Jones and Alex Vlasic. They did so well last year. Vlasic had that breakout season. Like you said, Martinez is going to add stability. Another person that they really were missing last season was Connor Murphy. He brings a lot of leadership to the team, and he was struggling with injuries. Hopefully he can remain healthy this season. And then you add in your young guys and your guys that are like, trying to make the team. I like it. Healthy competition. They could surprise us.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is having a system, and I mean Luke Richardson is now going into his second season as the coach, right? So third now. So I mean he's starting to get
Right? It's the third, right?
It is the third season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, time's just flying by. Yeah, third season going into. So he's starting to kind of know these guys now, and the young guys. I think it's just getting that system down and getting everyone together and just executing it. I think is the biggest thing. All right. Well, moving to the goaltending now, which hasn't really had much, actually, not even any changes except for the backup. Peter Mrazek is the starter again here coming in. You got Laurent Brossoit joining as the backup. He's, again, a veteran. He's been around a bit. He's won a cup with the Golden Knights, part of that goaltending carousel they had during that year. He was involved. He was a big part of it, actually, in the early part of those playoffs. So, I mean, this tandem, on paper, looks pretty decent. So, Brooke, what do you think about the goaltending? I mean, I wasn't really sure Mrazek was going to come back this season, but here he is again, and he had a pretty good season last year too. So, what do you think about this tandem?
I actually am excited about it. This is actually one I'm excited about because I think Brossoit, like you said, he was part of the best tandem, the goalie tandem in the NHL last season in the Winnipeg Jets. And Peter Mrazek obviously was the team's backbone last year. I do think it's fair if people have maybe concerns about if Mrazek is able to keep up that play from last year. I certainly think it's possible, but obviously you never know. Seasons change. You don't know. So I'm glad that Brossoit is there as like a backup. And like I think Davidson said, it could be like a 1A, 1B situation. That way, there's not so much pressure on Mrazek, and that way they can kind of split and it would just be more balanced. So I actually am excited to see. Like I said, it looks good on paper. I like it on paper. We'll have to see how it does on the ice, but I'm actually really excited about it. I know that Brossoit's hurt right now. Hopefully he's ready by the start of the season, but overall, yeah, I think that will be a position of, I don't think they should have concerns about goaltending this year. Let's put it that way.
As long as everyone stays healthy. That's a big one too.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. Hunter, what do you think about the goaltending going into this season?
Hey, that's Stanley Cup champion Laurent Brossoit.
Yeah.
Not that I know actually how many games he played with Vegas. But it's weird. I watched a decent amount of Winnipeg last year, and on the nights that he did play when Hellebuck didn't, looked solid. You always think too, how many goalies are in the league that maybe only get a couple dozen starts through the year. And then when they go to another team, all of a sudden you're like, wow, what a solid goaltender. So maybe Chicago's put themselves in this position where you have two goalies who can give you at least league average goaltending. If not upper tier, they keep you in the game every night. It felt like even last year, whenever Mrazek was in net, for the most part, he kept them in it. And so you hope that sustains this year, because the success to any team, regardless of whether they win the cup or go deep or do anything, it's a goalie who keeps you in it every night.
Yeah. It's true. And again, that's a veteran tandem. It's not these guys have been around. So I mean, they know what it takes. And Brossoit, he was Stanley Cup champion. He was actually a pretty big part of that team early on. I believe the second round he played quite a few games, and then of course Adin Hill took it the rest of the way. But yeah, he's a pretty decent backup, I think. Gail, you have anything to add about the goaltending? I mean, healthy, they actually could split starts and actually be a pretty good group.
Well, we know Brossoit is out, and he's probably going to miss the first couple of weeks of the season. Let's hope that he can bounce back. Mrazek was healthy last season. Let's hope that he stays healthy. Yeah. One of the things I guess I would bring up that we haven't really touched on is if one of them isn't healthy, right? We're thinking Arvid Soderblom is probably going to be the backup. He did not have a good season last season. Will he be able to bounce back? I'm sure he's going to try to if he gets that shot. Or are we going to see Drew Commesso up, right? Yeah. There's a possibility that we could see him up there. So there's still a lot of variables. I definitely would be confident in that 1A, 1B tandem as long as they can remain healthy, which already they're not. So
yeah, there you go. Well, it doesn't sound like Brossoit's gonna be out for very long, but
right.
I mean, Soderblom's he's looked good at times. Well, you said he didn't have a good season last season, but you know, the team in front of him wasn't that good either. So it's kind of hard for goaltenders to have good seasons when they're getting, having to deal with a bunch of high danger chances all the time. And, but Mrazek was actually quite good at stretches. I think at the beginning of the season, he was actually really good. And then, of course, the injuries happened to the other people, Bedard getting hurt, and then a whole bunch of other stuff happening. Taylor Hall really early on too, which really threw a wrench into things because he actually had a pretty good start. He only played 10 games, right? So yeah, I think the goaltending will be better if the team in front of him is healthy too. So for sure. All right, looking at the division. Now, the Central is an interesting one. I mean, all the divisions seem to be interesting this season, but this one has a few new powers. You got the Nashville Predators, who, of course, made the playoffs last season, but they added two major pieces in Stamkos and Marchessault. And then you've got the other team where Utah, of course, added Sergachev and a whole bunch of other veteran guys, and they got their young guys. They got a new team. They got that boost that, trying to get into the first year in the league. Brooke, what do you think about where the Blackhawks kind of stack up in this division? Because on paper, they could match up against some teams, but where do you see them here?
Do you know what? So they finished 8th in the Central and last season, and I don't know. I'm still thinking maybe they go 7th. I don't know. I'm not sure because I do actually think Utah. I was actually impressed by Utah last year. So I think actually they might improve still. And Nashville, it pains me to say it. They do scare me a little bit. It pains me to say this, but and like I said, Minnesota's kind of weird. They're always just kind of there. They always kind of linger around, even though they didn't make the playoffs last year. But I don't know. It's to be honest, I go back and forth because I don't think the Blackhawks will be a playoff team, even though you don't know how the year will shake out, how the teams will shake out. But I'm thinking right now 7th, maybe. I don't know. I could be very wrong. Like you said, you guys know I'm not good at these predictions. They're never right. So expect them to be first in the Central.
Gail, what about you? Where do you see the Blackhawks kind of fitting in the division this season?
I don't really have a whole lot to add, to be honest with you. Right? It's a tough division. Every division is a tough division right now. They finished 31st in the entire league. Yes, they've had a lot of good additions, and they might be able to put together some runs. I don't think last season they won 3 games in a row at all. I think it was 2 games, right? So let's just string together some wins and then take it from there because they're going to be improved, but compared to the rest of the league, they're still back there. They still got some time to go.
For sure. Hunter, you agree with that? Are they in that 7-8 still?
Yeah, it's which is too bad because I think they will improve from last year, but like that division, like at the top with Colorado and Dallas, now you add Nashville, like those are powerhouse teams that are just talented. And even like I don't know if I buy all the Utah hype, but they are spending and they are going to be at least they seem like they want to be competitive. So I can't see them like let's hope for 6th. You hope maybe like. Good point by Brooke. Like Minnesota's just there.
Yeah.
Like they're just like if you're playing Sporkle, they're the team you forget to add when you're doing the list of teams. So, but no, I can't envision them going like actually breaking through to the top half of the division.
It is really tough. And then you're looking at, of course, the other division too, and the Pacific is interesting too. So I don't think they're getting close to the playoffs. They're going to get a really high pick again this year. But I think they will be better. I do agree with that. It just depends on how better they will be. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to our quick fire round. And these are all just quick questions, 1 or 2 sentence answers for each of these guys. And I'll start with you, Brooke, on the first one. Biggest storyline or question mark going into this season for the Blackhawks?
I think right now it has to be Frank Nazar. I think about, is he going to make the team? Because I know there's a debate that he maybe might start in Rockford, but maybe if he comes into training camp and just blows everyone's socks off, which I think he has the potential to do, then maybe the roster gets a little more interesting. So I do think right now, I think he's the biggest storyline for sure.
Yeah, and Nazar had a good end to the season too when he came over and played a few games. Of course, scored his first goal already, so that's a good thing to already have in his pocket. Gail, what about you? A storyline going to this season?
I think that one of the biggest storylines is who is going to be Connor Bedard's line mates.
Yeah.
Going to be the new guys, the old guys, the existing guys, the young guys. And you want to know what, you guys? We completely forgot at the beginning when we talked about forwards to bring up Lukas Reichel. Like, where's Lukas Reichel fit, right? He's forgotten. We all forgot about him. But that's another kind of story that goes with who's going to be Bedard's line mates. Is Lukas Reichel going to come out of the woodwork and maybe have a year this year? So I guess who's going to be in the top six? Who's going to make those top guys? Is a good question.
It is a lot of variables there too. Where, I mean, the depth chart Daily Faceoff has is just that. I mean, you don't know these guys. That's where they're going to slot in. You don't know, right? Hunter, what about you? A storyline question mark here.
Well, actually, I was going to say Lukas Reichel as well, like a 2020 first round pick who 2 seasons ago, like for the brief window we saw him, we thought like this guy's going to be a stud. And last year he's getting healthy scratched and sent down. So I'd like to see him take a step back or a step up. But one quickly would be to see if Alex Vlasic takes that next step. We saw him play last year really consistently, and he looked like a top 4 NHL defenseman. Now that he's locked up long-term for 6 years, I'd like to see him take even more steps forward and just to be, just that natural development of being a top pairing defenseman in this league.
For sure. He's shown a lot of progression every season he's been. So, I mean, eventually he'll really take a big step forward. Now he's under that big contract. He's going to be a little more pressure as well, too. So, all right. Gail, 1 or 2 breakout stars for this season for the Blackhawks.
Whoever plays with Bedard.
It's good. It's a good answer.
It was Kurashev last season, right? I mean, I don't know if you can call Teravainen and Bertuzzi breakout stars because they're already stars, but I would go with that.
All right, that's a good one. It is very good. Brooke, what about you? A breakout star for this season?
I don't know, because that probably would have been my answer, but I mean, I don't want to say Lukas Reichel because I feel like we just talked about him, but I guess I'll go with Lukas Reichel because he's got a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, there you go.
And I think it's very likely he could. Like, he's got the potential. I'm a big fan of Reichel, actually. I'm a big fan of his potential, so I'll go with him.
All right, Hunter, what about you?
Obviously Lukas Reichel. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think it'll be. I think Wyatt Kaiser's going to get opportunity this year. They'll at some point there'll be injuries on the blue line, and I think that if he can take whatever role they give him, and whether it's maybe some power play time or maybe he gets extra minutes on any given night, all of a sudden he could, force the coach's hand and force them to keep him in the lineup every night.
Yeah, I think he's not even listed on this depth chart for on Daily Faceoff. So, right there. He's gonna have to break through some of these guys that are.
So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, Hunter, I'll stay with you. Someone that needs to bounce back from last season.
I'd say Taylor Hall, but it's not fair because he was injured early. So, and I hope I'm not stealing this from anyone, but I'd say like Andreas Athanasiou. Like we saw pockets like I remember watching him. I remember watching him in person in London all the time, and then going to see him in Detroit, and you saw like high skill, high speed, and he's a player that like within the league, when people talk about underrated players, other players will say like he's got it all. Like he does have the hands and the skill to it, but he hasn't put it together. But I'd like to see him just be like a regular 40-point player in this league. Like I don't know what's stopping him from scoring 20 goals. So, but we'll see.
Yeah, he showed a lot of potential in Detroit there and looked like he was going to be a star, but he's been solid. Like he hasn't been bad, but it's just he has kind of bounced around a bit, and then
underwhelming.
Yeah, that's a good word for him. Yeah,
doesn't know how to finish.
Yeah, Gail, what about you? Someone that needs to bounce back.
Okay, I'm going to go defense and say, well, we already said Lukas Reichel, right? Andreas Athanasiou is a good choice. I'm going to go defense and say Connor Murphy needs to have a bounce back season.
Yeah, that's a good one. Especially he has to stay healthy too, which is a big thing too. Brooke, what about a bounce back for you?
Like I said, I was gonna say Lucas Reichel, but I knew I should have saved that answer. But I'm
Yeah.
gonna go. I'm gonna
All
go
right.
a little.
You can
Yeah,
fall
but
into different categories.
yeah, sorry, I already said him already. So I'm gonna go a little different, and I'm gonna say Mikheyev because I really do think, even though he's new to the Blackhawks, I know he's kind of had some adversity with his injury and everything else, and I know he started out good in Vancouver and then kind of sizzled. So I think he has to make an impression on this roster for sure. So I'll say him. I think he has to have a bounce back year.
He would have been my choice. He was still with the Canucks. So there you go.
Yeah.
He's a good
Just
one.
pass it on, pass it
Well,
forward.
that's good to know. Yeah. Okay.
Because he does need to bounce back. He went through what? I think it was like 50 plus games without a goal.
Ooh.
So yeah, and he was getting really frustrated.
Like
Yeah.
He's gonna fit right in.
Playing with Pedersen and he couldn't score a goal in 50
geez.
games. Like, come on, man. He had chances, just couldn't finish. So I mean, if he can finish some plays, then yeah, he's good. He can score 20 goals. I mean, he's got the skill. He just got to finish. All right, Gail, someone that needs to bounce. I already said that. An X factor. Next one, an X factor for this season. It could be a player or it could be a situation.
I'm gonna go with I think that Teuvo Teravainen is gonna be the X factor as long as he plays with even if he doesn't play with Bedard, right? I think he'll be one of the most successful forwards.
He doesn't have to play with Bedard to be good. I mean, I think he can be good by himself too. I think he's a really good player. I really liked him in Carolina. It's how he played. So I think he's gonna be good too for X Factor. Hunter, what about you? An X Factor for this season?
I'm gonna say Tyler Bertuzzi just because with Toronto last season, like he still hit 20 plus goals, but almost no power play time.
Yeah.
And I think he thrived best in Detroit when he had it. And when he went on his run with Boston briefly, he was a power play machine. So if he can get back into that routine here in Chicago, and plus too, if he shares the ice with Bedard, I think he would be like a candidate for comeback player of the year.
100%. He's going to play with a really skilled player. So I mean that he should be able to get a few chances. Brooke, what about you? Someone or something that could be an X factor this season.
I'm glad Hunter and Gail answered this because I had to think about this for a minute. I'll say the power play, which could be an X factor because I mean, to be honest, like it can't get worse. Like honestly, the power play has been so bad the past few years that it can't get worse. And now they actually have some actually really solid options out there. They could put Bertuzzi, they could put Teravainen, they could put Taylor Hall, and then pair that with Connor Bedard and Philip Kurashev, and you could even put Pat Maroon out there if you want to. I mean, I don't know, but like I said, I do think there could be a big improvement there. So I'll say that.
We totally forgot about Pat Maroon as being an addition too. He's not on this depth chart. That's why I forgot about him. But he could be a good guy too, for sure.
Him and Lucas Reichel, he's just the forgotten guys. They're going to have a chip on their shoulder with that.
Yeah.
The forgotten players. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move to prospects, rookies or prospects. And Gail, I'll start with you. Anyone that could surprise and push their way into the roster we're not anticipating? There are a few candidates here because there were quite a few players that had their first NHL games at the end of the season. Landon Slaggert, Frank Nazar. There's probably some guys I'm missing. Who could break through here?
I don't think we're going to be surprised if it's Frank Nazar, but I guess I'll go with Landon Slaggert just because there's so much depth now that they've added 5 veteran forwards that you kind of expect that he will not. But he also played, I forget how many games, a good handful of games, I think over a dozen, and that might give him a leg up.
Yeah, I like Slaggert too. I liked him when he was drafted, so I think he could maybe potentially played. He was pretty good. So, yeah, we'll see. Brooke, what about you? Someone that could surprise and make the team.
I talk about him a lot, but I'm going to say Ethan Del Mastro on defense because I just don't know how this defense is going to shake out. Like you said, if there's injuries, if someone gets traded, if that, you don't know what's going to happen there. But obviously, if something does happen, I think he might get another look. I know that they really like him, and if not, he'll just be a top defenseman in Rockford. But either way, I think he might be someone to look for this season.
Sure, he's probably going to be the first call up if there is some injuries, because he did spend a little time in Chicago last season too. So yeah, he's a good option for sure. And Hunter, finishing up with you, who at someone that could surprise and make the roster here.
I don't know if they're going to I don't think that they won't make the roster out of camp, but someone who I think will get called up in the odd start is Drew Commesso. I'm just going off the board with it because I think that at some point there'll be an injury, or if the team, like we talked about this last season, where if the Blackhawks get bad enough, we thought that maybe Mrazek might get dealt. And I don't think they'll get traded now, but I think just things happen over the course of the season. And if he gets a call up, like his game last year with Rockford was good. So I'd appreciate to see an opportunity of him getting a few starts through the year.
Yeah, I like Commesso. He's been on my top 10 goaltending prospects for ever since he was able to be put on that list. He's been on it. So I think he could potentially, I think he's the goaltender of the future in Chicago. It's just a matter of when that'll happen. And we all know the development of goaltenders. It's very interesting to follow goalies, because it's sometimes not linear of how they develop.
Sure.
All right. Talking about prospects in general, there's a lot of Blackhawks prospects. They got so many good guys in their system. So watch them all. But Brooke, who should fans be watching this season, prospect wise?
I don't want to say Frank, because I know that's going to be a popular answer. I kind of want to think outside the box here, but I do have an idea. So I'll go Colton Dach as a prospect to watch this year, because he actually does have to legitimately make some noise. And he did talk about that today during his media availability, that he needs to prove he's an NHL forward. So I'll say he's one to watch.
For sure. And rookie camp's going on right now. So this is a perfect question. Gail, what about you? A prospect or prospects, you can mention a few, that everyone should be watching this season.
Well, I'm just going to go with the number 2 overall. I don't know if he was. They probably haven't pegged for Rockford this season, but he's definitely somebody to watch. See how he does. I think he'll get called up at some point, even if it's late in the year. But let's get excited about this guy.
LoFurno say, it's great because he's not going back to the NCAA, so we're going to see him in pro hockey somewhere. And I mean, who knows? He could potentially surprise and make the roster. You never know. He could do it. He's definitely.
Although he's hurt right now, so
yeah. I mean, he could play this season then in the NHL. Who knows? Injuries always throw wrenches into things.
I know.
Well, it's really minor, but right, that just means he's going to miss most of training camp. So that's unfortunate.
He'll be behind the 8 ball, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Hunter, finishing with you. What do you got for prospects? Prospect.
I'm gonna hit you guys with a combo pack. We got Nick Lardis, who was a 3rd-round pick last year, and Merrick Vanaker, who was the other 1st-round pick this year. Yes. They're both in Brantford, and I live right like an hour from Brantford, and I've gone to enough games to see that it's going to be a treat to see both of them next year. They're both they're a couple years from being a couple years away. But if you have the opportunity to watch OHL hockey this year and Brantford's on that night, give it a shot, because they're high skill guys. And again, it's something that's down the road. But if you're a fan who likes to watch people in the system, take some time, watch some junior hockey, and support your local junior hockey teams.
Yes, 100%. Nick Lardis I've always liked too, so definitely. One guy I'll throw in, AJ Spalassi. I love him. I love that he got drafted, for one, because he was unranked by a bunch of places, 7th-round pick at other places. And Blackhawks picked him up. I think he's going to end up being a really good NHL player at some point. So keep an eye on him.
I'm wondering if that has to do with didn't he join hockey late? He was football before that. So
yeah, that's right. He was he was actually a really highly ranked football prospect, and he chose hockey instead. So, yeah, he's a multi-talented athlete. So we'll see how he does in the future. That's a guy to watch. All right, couple questions to finish. And I'll start with you, Brooke. Who's leading the team in scoring, forwards and defense? Probably some obvious guy to start.
Yeah, I have to go Connor Bedard on offense and Seth Jones on defense. Just keep it simple.
Yeah, for sure. Gail, you agree with that? You're gonna throw a wrench in here.
It's like not even really a question with Blackhawks.
It's true.
Bedard and Seth
There's
Jones.
some teams that are really
or maybe Table Ryan, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
There are some teams this one's really easy to pick.
Yeah.
But Hunter, you got the same thing.
It's gonna be those two, unless if we go really off. Let's say Korchinski takes a step up, maybe he'll lead the team. Maybe he'll get extra, maybe, but no, it's Seth Jones.
It'll probably be that for sure.
Yeah, probably.
Unless injuries, and we never want to talk about that. That injuries could make a problem with that too. All right, finishing the show, let's talk some bold predictions. And Gail, I'll start with you. A bold prediction or a hot take for the season?
I don't know if this is that bold, but I really do think that Connor Bedard will surpass 30 goals and 80 points. Last season, he had 22 goals, 61 points altogether, and only in 68 games. So I think it's just a given. 30 goals, 80 points.
All right. Hunter, what about you? Bold prediction.
Bold prediction. I'm going to say that Bedard finishes in the top 5 in scoring. He's going to just have, I think he's going to get, there's just, I don't know what it is around him, but I still don't think we appreciate just how damn good he is. And he'll be up there this year.
I agree. I think Bedard's, of course, in his future, he's going to be a 100-point guy at one point. It's just, I don't know about now, but he could hit 70, 80 points. I think 80 points is doable.
It's happening this year. Bet on it. It's happening.
All right. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Other guys have to finish his passes too to add to that. That's the biggest thing. And Brooke, finish it. What do you got for a bold prediction?
I don't think I actually really believe this, but it is a bold statement. Like, it's something bold to think about, is that Brossoit could overtake Mrazek as a starter. I don't know. But like I said, I don't know if I believe that. I truly do think Mrazek's a starter, but I'm just putting it out there. I don't know. It's definitely bold.
Brossoit has done it, right?
You touched on one earlier, Brooke, that could actually be a bold prediction too, that the power play is finally going to be good.
Yeah, I got a couple going here.
That's a good one.
I got a couple going here.
Well, I'll go the bold prediction. I'll say Bedard's hitting 100 points this season.
Oh, wow.
I bow down.
I like you, Matthew. That would make us all very happy.
That's right. He will.
That also means the guys are other, of course, people have to help him out too. I mean, guys that have 100 points also score, also get the assists. All right. Yeah. So we'll see who clicks with Bedard, and maybe Taylor Hall will actually get his top line with Bedard this season.
I could have that competition. Like remember when Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat did that, right? Who's got the most points, because they were basically the assist.
We'll see. Well, it should be an interesting season for the Blackhawks. I mean, they probably won't get out of the basement like we've talked about, but I think there'll be a more exciting team this season, and there's a lot of guys that can score. There's a lot of interesting question marks and storylines to start the season with. So I think it's going to be a good one. I think we're going to enjoy watching the Blackhawks. I mean, just Bedard again. I mean, it'll be exciting to watch anyway. But thanks, Brooke, Gail, and Hunter for coming on and talking the Blackhawks as we get set for the regular season, which is just around the corner. We got training camps in a few days. We got about a week, maybe for most teams, but rookie camps are ongoing as we're going through here. Lots of tournaments going on. So make sure you're checking all that out and checking out all the stuff at thehockeywriters.com for the Blackhawks coverage and all of our preview stuff that we've got out on the site already. for all the teams and for the Blackhawks, and the Substack as well. Check that out. But until our next preview show, we will see you next time.